Hi, welcome back. I'm Marissa, and yeah, today's video is me in the car. I have quite a few things that I'm doing. I'm running errands, and I am determined to get this video out. Um, so, first, welcome. And I want to give glory and honor to God for restoring my voice in more ways than one. And we'll jump right into the video. So, I have been caring for my mother who's gone through a major orthopedic surgery. And in the caring for her, with this splitting of the shifts between my sister and I have, I noticed something, and I will say that whether you are a daughter of a single parent, a single mom, or a single dad, or just if you are this is actually for everyone. If you are a son, or if you're a daughter, and you have or will have aging parents, this is for you, okay? Understand, and parents, this is also for you, right? My observation is this, and I'm not going to get into details, but my observation is this. It is a privilege, if you are a parent, it is a privilege to have willing and able adult children that are willing and able to care for you. If something should happen, if you need a surgery, if you are ill, right? It's a privilege. We are all afforded privileges in life. And as a parent, it is my observation, because I'm not a parent yet, but it is my observation that it's a privilege. And I think sometimes parents expect, parents expect their children to care for them. I have seen the complete opposite. And then you've got, one end of the spectrum where, you've got the children, the adult children, like my sister and I, right, that do and will honor her, right, and care for her to a certain extent, right? She's got to be willing to do the work herself. But also, you've got the other end of the spectrum where there are adult children that are just, they could care less. So just because you have children does not automatically mean that they are going to be your caregivers when you need them. So again, I just will say that it is a privilege if you are a parent and you have children and they are willing and able to care for you. So just a thought, moving on to my next topic. This is like and this may be a segmented video because I'm like running errands and doing a bunch of other things. But like I said, I'm determined to get this video out. But the second topic that I kind of want to touch briefly on is what I've been seeing. I feel like I'm late to the party because a lot of the videos that I've been seeing are, they've been put out, they were put out, a year ago or 2 years ago. But what I've been seeing is a lot of women by choice choosing to be single moms. This is nothing new, new for me to see. I guess I'm shocked at the scale of how many women are actually choosing to be single moms by choice. I'll give you I have a cousin, very accomplished, and we'll just call her T. And in my early 20s, I'd say she was 15 years older. So in my early 20s, she's 15 years older. Beautiful. I mean, absolutely beautiful. Could model everything. She decided that she wanted to be a mom, and she went to the sperm bank and did what she did. And fast forward 5 or 6 years, when her son is now, 6 years old, 7 years old, I remember her saying, at first, so let me rewind. I thought that was the coolest thing. And I was in my early 20s. I thought, well, hey, my mom did it. T is doing it. They make it, they made it, well, T makes it look easy because she just had one. And so in my head at the time, I was like, oh, that could be an option for me if I don't, meet the man, the man of my dreams, right? So yeah, after seeing that, I was inspired a little bit. And fast forward 6 years, when her son is now, like I said, 6 to 7 years old, she says to myself and like a few other of our female cousins, where I think it was his birthday or something like that, and she's like, make sure that when you're around, I couldn't believe she said it. She says, make sure that you don't flip your hand a certain way, right? Make sure. So basically, you know, is there a word for, like, I don't know, defeminize, or like, I don't, whatever. She basically said, do not show ultra feminine movements, hand gestures, posture around him. And I was shocked. Because I was just, I'd never heard anything like that before. And it wasn't until I got old, until later, like I would say maybe 10 years later, that I realized why she said that, because it didn't dawn on me that she didn't want her son, who she's raising by herself. She's got a few, she had a few cousins that would hang around, but no one that lived in the house with her and her son, to actually show him, how men sit, right? How men speak, how they stand, their posture. She didn't have that. She didn't have that in the house. And so I just, 10 years after witnessing that, and after, seeing that and hearing my cousin talk about this, I was, I got it. I understood it. And it was then that I was just like, you know what? No, that would never be for me, ever. And I can say that confidently because, yeah, that's something, knowing what I know and having experienced what I've experienced as a daughter of a single mother, there's no way that I would want I would bring a child into a world where they will always long, always, I don't care what anybody says, they will always long for their biological link, missing link, always. They will always long for that missing link that is not in their lives. There will always be that need. And I wouldn't, it's one thing to lose someone, and even then, that's still, to lose someone and to know that you do have that, right? You had it, or you have a second parent, but the thought of not having or not knowing, that must be torture for a child. Can you imagine? I would never. And I just think it's really, and I'm trying to not sound judgmental, but I do know that there are repercussions for, children that are being brought up in single parent households. Whether it's by choice, whether you will decide you want to do it by choice, become a mom or become a dad by choice, or, you split the house up. There are repercussions for those actions. And I think ultimately, in the end, the child suffers. So I just think it's, I don't know. I personally would never, ever. Yeah, I will stay single and childless until the time is right. But I just think it's sad the amount, and listening to some of their reasoning, like, yeah, just listening to some of the reasoning on why they've made the choice to to become a single parent, single mom by choice. Some of them are doing it with one, some of them are doing it with two. I'm like, that's hard. You can't split your attention. Just one child needs a lot of attention. And when you have two, or when you have, even if you just have one, right? The amount of time and attention and care that should go into one requires, I mean, it and again, I'm not a parent, but I have observed, I have experienced being a daughter of a single mother. It requires a lot of attention, and it requires a lot of patience. And sometimes having a partner, having a second set of eyes, a second set of ears, a second set of hands, a man that can show the opposite of what you are, is so vital for child development. I just don't understand why anybody would want to do single parenthood by themselves. But I just thought that was it really, and like I said, I'm late to the party, but I just saw a lot of this and was shocked. Okay, so that's that. I also want to talk about how being a daughter of a single mom, how that can affect or has affected mine, and I can just only speak from personal experience, but how it's affected my dating life and relationships with men. And yeah, and I think that's like that's twofold. So a lot of it, a lot of how I a lot of how my relationships have been with men are, I do attribute, yes, to, I actually attribute it more to the absence of my father than being in a single parent household. So yeah, my I will say the positive. I'll start with the positive. The um, the positive attributes that I've experienced, being a daughter of a single mom, is independence, self-reliance, right? Those are some of the things that I learned. I saw a hardworking woman get up and go to work every day. Her work ethic was unmatched, in my opinion. Um, yeah, she did it, and she did it in a hard city that is unforgiving. So, being in New York with two daughters is, and it's not easy. So yeah, she did it, in my opinion, unmatched, and for that I will always be grateful. But with that being said, um, it did have its challenges because she couldn't be in two places at one time, right? So me, I you find a lot of stuff to get into. And that's not to say I was bad, but I had a lot of time on my hands. I did. When she wasn't around, she had to work, right? So after school, if this is, and I'm talking about in my teenage years. I feel like everybody had, those teenage years, you know. And then, like I said, unfortunately, some of that carried over into like adulthood. But I will say, that a lot of a lot of my relation, okay, I'll say a lot of what I've experienced, um, as an adult, I attribute to my father not being present. So there's one instance in particular that I will highlight, and that is I was 14. My sister and I think I mentioned this before in one of my other videos, but my sister and I were visiting. We had flown from, New York to California, and just long story short, we were expecting him. We were at my aunt's house, and we were expecting for our father to come and pick us up. And he had been saying he was on his way since 10 o'clock. We waited, and we sat on that couch, and we waited, and we waited. 5 o'clock rolls around. He says, "Oh, I'm not coming." And at 14, I was so pissed and hurt that I cussed him out. And for me, that was a crash course on not only self-reliance, right? Because you never want to rely on anybody to bring you happiness or bring you joy, right? So that's what that taught me. It also taught me that, you really can't depend on anybody. If not that you can't depend, I shouldn't say that. Not that you can't depend on anybody, but the wrong person, no. Yeah. It's yeah. The wrong person in your life, you should not expect too much of. But unfortunately, this wrong person was not somebody that I chose. This was my father, right? So yeah, for me that was a crash course on men, to not ask for anything, because it's not going to happen, right? Your emotional mindset, if you're not willing to share with me, right? If you're not willing to open up, then I'm not, I can't beg you, right? I can't like force you to see me, and I can't force you to want to be around me. And that is what that moment in time at 14 taught me. And yeah, I mean, now, was that right for me to cuss him out? No, it wasn't. But I was so angry because, this was my second time trying to get to know him and reaching out, right? This was and I did it 3 times in my entire life. 3. And this was the second time that I made an attempt to try. The first time I might have been like 10. And yeah, that yielded nothing. And so I said, I'll try again. And so, long story short, the absence and the lack of emotional stability that I felt from, my father not being there is really how and what kind of shaped my view of men. There are some good men out there. I'm not saying that there are not, right? Because there are some good. I've dated some. And I've had relationships with some. But I feel like that it wasn't, I there was a lot I had to heal from, really, because yeah, like I said, I held on to that incident for a very long time. And I was really like cold with men. And I had one anyway, I expected a great deal of toughness and fortitude from men, because that's not what I had with my father, right? And I think I still expect a lot. I still expect a very masculine man, and if you can't meet that, then it's just a no. And I think sometimes the way that I feel and the way that I date, I'm really, I don't know. I think I'm just quick to cut people off. That's what it is. And I am quick to detach myself because of that incident. That's like the one, and I don't think detachment is such a bad thing, right? If it's done in a healthy way. Um, so dating is difficult. I'm over 40, but I'm also unwilling to settle. I just That's just something that I've never been able to do. I So I had friends in college. I'll just like kind of reflect real quick. I had friends in college. They all dated athletes, and all their athlete boyfriends played in the NFL. And we're talking like some good names. Now some of them are actually coaches for the teams that they used to play for. So this is when I was in college. This is who I hung around. Right? These are the girls that were friends of mine, and we went on vacations together. And but I saw the drama and the issues that they had to deal with just to be in the circle of the NFL circle, right? That and so like that for me just didn't it never appealed to me. And I couldn't for the life of me I couldn't understand why these my friends tolerated some of the nonsense that they tolerated, right? And I remember one of my friends, her now husband, would say, "You should be more." He kept telling her, and I was just it was just weird. He kept telling her, "You should be more like Marissa. I want you to be more like Marissa. Be more like Marissa." But then she went ahead and how could you allow a man to tell you to be more like your friend, and you go and marry him and have children with this man? That to me, like I just was this is I this is part of the reason why I have not settled. I'm not married. I'm not. And I'm okay with that. I am. I am okay with that. Because like I said, that incident at 14 with my father taught me a lot. And yeah, this is why choosing well is half the battle. If you choose well and you choose well within the body of Christ, everything else is like it should be, right? In theory, should be a walk in the park, a beautiful stroll in the park, in my opinion. Not to say that there won't be any like hiccups and disagreements, but everything else, if you choose well, yeah, that's half the battle. And so yeah, I just think being a daughter, being a daughter of a single mother taught me a lot on so many different levels, right? The level of the type of mother that I want to be, the type of man and husband that I want. It taught me, like I said, fortitude, perseverance. I'm sure there were moments that my mom wanted to give up. I know, actually. I know, because we went and lived with my aunt in Vallejo for a year. And if you don't know where Vallejo is California. It's in the Bay Area. It's where E40 is from. But anyway, yeah, I just know that being a daughter of a single mother is for me was a blessing, because I would have rather have I'm glad that my mom had I'm glad that she had the courage to leave toxicity, but had she chose well, she wouldn't have had to deal with half of what she dealt with. You see? So, yeah, choosing well is half the battle. They were unequally yoked. My mom is the one that, like, she had, my grandparents were, he was a pastor. My grandmother, this is my mom's parents. My grandfather was a pastor and pastor's wife, and he was military. He served in World War II. So my mom grew up with a certain level of discipline and structure and love and communication. My father, on the other hand, you know, his mom had 8 kids, and my grandfather was a good man. My grandfather on my father's side was a good man. But my grandmother, on the other hand, is the one that split the family up. So I think, it really boils down to choosing well. And I know now that in the day, I take my time. And if it doesn't ever happen for me, I've really, honestly, it was I want to say last spring is when I came to the realization, you know what? And I'll never forget, I had a conversation, a conversation with God. And if it, I don't want to go into it here, but, basically, I came to the realization that if it doesn't ever happen, it doesn't. If it's not God's will, then it's not. And I'm not going to force it anymore. Because there were times that I felt like, oh, the clock is ticking. And, yeah, I do want to be a mom and I do want to have a husband, but I'm going to, hop on this dating app, which never worked. Okay. Dating apps are the worst. I don't know. Never. Okay. Just, yeah, it's a no. So yeah, deep, and I feel like and I apologize if I'm all over the place, but I do have a lot to say in this video because a lot of things since I've been helping out my mom have been like coming to me, and yeah, it's been interesting to see, interesting to hear, and yeah, choosing well is half the battle. And in the world of dating, right, settling, and I've done that before too, but not for long. I mean, I've felt like I have settled. Like, why am I dealing with what you're giving in a relationship? And I've cut things off, and I just think that there have been times that I have entertained nonsense, and I think that might have been my own insecurity or loneliness. But like I said, last spring is when I came to the realization I'm not lonely. Loneliness, thing of the past. It is what it is. I have a dog. That's not to say that my dog, he doesn't sleep in my bed. He doesn't keep me warm at night, but he is a companion. He is a dog. He's not a child, but he is a dog. And he does get me out. He does get me out and about and walking and talking to people, right? So I'm okay. I'm okay. If if the man that God has for me does not ever come into my life, which I don't think that, because I believe God's promises, and I don't think, but who knows, if it's not God's will, then that's what it is. So I have stopped myself from forcing. I've stopped myself from looking. Yeah, and I will say that from the perspective of dating as a daughter of a single mother, it can be challenging because there's two ends of that spectrum, okay? I've seen. You can either be like me, you've had something that was very significant, like my father not ever showing up to pick my sister and I up. That was a very significant moment in my life. And seeing how he was absent emotionally, physically, financially, right? And using that, using him as what you should not look for and what you should not depend on in a man, right? And that him being the model of that. Or the other side of the spectrum is the single mom that constantly has a flow of men coming in and out, right? So what does that perpetuate? You're a daughter and you grow up with a constant flow of men in and out of your life, right? And I don't know. I just think that being a daughter of a single mother, right? If you're a parent watching this, you get to determine the type of, and you're a single parent by circumstance, right? So you were married, got divorced, had a slip up with your high school sweetheart, whatever the case may be, but you are a single parent by circumstance. You have the ability you have the ability to determine the outcome of your child's life. Now, that's not to say that it's guaranteed, right? But are you going to be the single mom that is going to continue to date and it's okay? Whether you date and they know about it, especially if they're young, if they're in high school, that's a different story. You still don't want to bring, men around. You shouldn't want to bring men around your children unless you know for sure that this is the one, right? And you've met him, and he's a godly man, right? Walking in God's word. Yeah. Or, and I shouldn't say or, but and you don't, you really, really want to make sure that you're just not exposing, even if your child doesn't know. Imagine, so let's say you're dating a man, you guys have been dating for a year, your children don't know, but you break up, you slump into a deep depression. What does that do to your child? You slumping into a deep depression, right? So this year could be the most pivotal year that your child will ever go through, and there you are, depressed over a relationship. So my opinion, I feel like single parents, especially if you've got young children, should not be dating. That's my opinion. And there's some science behind that too, right? Look up the Cinderella effect and you'll see. So I just think that, there are some, in my case and in my story, there were pros and cons of being, brought up by a single mom. And some of those, the choices that my parents made, I had to suffer through. I really did. I had to suffer through. And that's a choice that I would not want to make willingly. I would not want to be a single mother, by choice, just for the sake of being a mom, a single mom. That's just something I don't want to do by myself. No. So with that being said, moral of the story, choose wisely. If you are a daughter of a single mother, it's okay. Don't let people pressure you, right? Don't let people pressure you, because I know I felt pressure from several different people. In my mid-30s, I felt a lot of pressure. All right, even myself, I was pressuring myself. So, yeah, don't let people pressure you. It's better to remain single and childless until your God ordained husband comes along, because it's not it's not fun to have to put yourself through anguish like that. And then you bring a life into the world. Now you have to worry about your anguish and then the repercussions of your anguish with the child and then theirs as they get older. So, yeah, it's a no. And I would say choose wisely. Um, Continue to really talk to God about your desire. If it's marriage, if it's, children, talk to him about it. And don't feel pressured. And if you are a parent and you are a single parent, really reconsider and consider yourself, like consider your child before either making the decision to become a single mom, or if you are already a single mom, is this is dating, should I be dating, and why am I dating? Am I dating because I'm bored? Am I dating because I just want companionship? Why am I dating? Right? And I think really, really considering your reasoning, and then also consider the implications of you dating, right? What could possibly happen? Or worst case scenario, actually. That would be a good one. I don't usually like to do worst case scenarios, but worst case scenario, if you're a daughter, I mean, if you're a parent of a single, if you're a parent and you're a single parent, worst case scenario while dating. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Real quick, and then I'm gonna get off because this is like almost okay. So I also do want to say this, that when why choosing wisely is so important. If you, I don't want to bring, so it's really important for me because, like, if for whatever reason you leave this world, right? Whose hands will your children be in? Can you trust your child's life with your significant other, with your husband? Do you feel like he would be the best, or she would be the best possible person to raise godly children in a dying world? Do you feel like that? Like, I remember asking myself that very question, because it came to me. I was in the shower and I was in this relationship that I was like, no, this is a no-go. I can't, I gotta get out. And I remember saying to myself, and I said, this man, I wouldn't feel comfortable if I were to ever leave this world. I would not feel comfortable. If I were to have children, I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving them with him. That's a deep question. So, again, before you jump into like a relationship, before you, if you're a single mom, before you jump into a relationship, ask yourself, could you see yourself, if you were to leave this earth, could you see your children being with that person that you're actually with? And if you're a daughter of a single, or if you're a daughter and you're dating somebody, and whatever the case may be, could you see yourself, if you were to ever leave this world, could you see yourself leaving your children with this man? And if the answer is no, then what are you doing? Out of that. So, yeah, okay. Thank you all for joining. That was today. I thank you for sticking with me. This is 40 minutes, and I just appreciate you sticking with me. But I had to get this out, and there were so many things that were stopping me from actually putting this video out before I actually did this video. So if you made it here, then I'm so thankful and I'm so grateful. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that this message has reached and has fallen on the ears of the person that needs to hear it. So, thanks again. Until next time. Bye.